The bitter taste of beer slid down Maria's throat, bringing that false sense of relief she knew all too well. It was another Friday night fever at the corner bar, where the smell of alcohol mingled with sweat and smoke. Maria, a 35-year-old executive, lived for these moments, when she could drown the pressures of work, failed relationships, and unmet expectations in liters of alcohol. "Another round," she shouted, ignoring the concerned looks from some colleagues. The world was already spinning a bit, but who cared? It was Friday, and Maria felt invincible. The bartender, a weathered man in his 50s, raised an eyebrow but complied. "Coming right up, Maria. But maybe this should be the last one, eh?" Maria scoffed, her words slightly slurred. "Oh, come on, Jorge. The night's still young. Besides, I've got a high tolerance. I can handle it." Jorge shook his head as he placed the fresh beer in front of her. "That's what worries me, kid. That's what worries me." Maria's friend, Sarah, placed a hand on her arm. "He's right, you know. Maybe we should call it a night? I can drive you home. Drive me home." Maria laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "I'm fine. I've driven home in worse states than this. Besides, I need this. You don't understand the week I've had." Sarah's face creased with concern. "Then tell me about it. Talk to me, Maria. We don't need alcohol for that." For a moment, something flickered in Maria's eyes, a hint of vulnerability, quickly drowned by another swig of beer. "There's nothing to talk about. Just the usual, impossible deadlines, sexist bosses, and oh, did I mention Tom broke up with me? Over text, no less." "Oh, Maria, I'm so sorry," Sarah began, but Maria cut her off. "Don't be. He was a jerk anyway. They all are. Men, work, life. It's all just one big disappointment. But this," she raised her glass, "this never lets me down." Hours passed in a blur of laughter that was a little too loud, jokes that weren't quite funny, and an ever-growing pile of empty glasses. The bar began to empty, but Maria showed no signs of slowing down. It was well past midnight when she finally stumbled to her feet. All right. Show's over, folks. This executive needs her beauty sleep." "Maria, wait," Sarah called out, reaching for her friend's arm. "You can't drive like this. Let me call you a cab." Maria shrugged her off, fumbling for her car keys. "I told you I'm fine. I do this all the time. Stop worrying so much." Outside, the cool night air hit her like a slap, momentarily clearing her head. For a split second, doubt crept in. Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe she should call a cab. But then the world tilted again, and that fleeting moment of clarity was gone. She stumbled to her car, fighting with the key fob. It took several attempts before she managed to unlock the door and collapse into the driver's seat. The key scraped against the ignition as she tried to insert it, a distant voice in her mind screaming that this was madness. But the alcohol quickly silenced it. The engine roared to life, and Maria felt a surge of triumph. See? She was fine. Everyone worried too much. As she pulled out of the parking lot, the streets of the city transformed into a blur of lights. Maria felt euphoric, free. The radio blasted her favorite song, and she sang along at the top of her lungs, one hand on the wheel, the other waving in the air. She didn't see the red light, didn't notice the intersection, didn't hear the blaring horn of the oncoming truck. It all changed in the blink of an eye. A flash of headlights, the deafening sound of metal twisting, and then, silence. Maria felt as if a giant hand was crushing her. Her vision darkened, not from unconsciousness, but from something deeper, more terrifying. It was as if reality itself was shattering around her. Excruciating pain exploded in her chest, as if 1,000 needles were piercing every inch of her body. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. She was being pulled into an abyss of darkness, feeling every fiber of her being disintegrating. The world around her faded, replaced by a void so profound it seemed to swallow all light, all sound, all sensation. Maria felt herself drifting, untethered from her body, from life itself. Was this death? Was this the price of her recklessness? As consciousness slipped away, her last coherent thought was a desperate plea. "Please let me live. I'll change. I promise I'll change." But the darkness didn't answer. It simply enveloped her, dragging her deeper into the unknown. The life she knew, the problems she thought were so insurmountable, all of it seemed trivial now in the face of this vast, terrifying nothingness. And so Maria's journey began, not just a brush with death, but a voyage into the depths of her soul and the mysteries beyond. Little did she know that this moment, born from her lowest point, would be the catalyst for a transformation she never could have imagined. The darkness was absolute, suffocating. Maria floated in a void that seemed to suck away all hope and light. The silence was deafening, broken only by distant echoes of agonizing screams that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. As Maria drifted in this nightmarish expanse, her thoughts raced. Is this death? Is this hell? Her voice, or what she thought was her voice, didn't make a sound. It was as if the darkness swallowed even her thoughts. Suddenly, she wasn't alone anymore. Shadows moved in the penumbra, distorted shapes that seemed made of nightmares. The air grew dense, heavy with a putrid smell of fermented alcohol and decay. A guttural laugh echoed through the darkness, making Maria tremble to her bones. "Who's there?" she tried to call out, but her words were swallowed by the void. From the darkness emerged a figure that defied sanity. It was a grotesque creature, with burned and blistered skin, eyes injected with a liquid that looked like boiling whiskey. Its mouth, a crooked gash in its deformed face, dripped a dark, viscous liquid. "Welcome to your paradise, Maria," the creature mocked, its voice a mixture of broken bottles and muffled screams. "I am you. I am every sip you took, every stupid decision you made under my influence." Maria recoiled in horror, trying to back away, but in this formless void, there was nowhere to go. No, this can't be real," she whimpered. The creature's laugh was like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, but it is, my dear. It's as real as every hangover you've ever had." Images suddenly appeared around them, projected like a macabre film. Maria saw herself vomiting in dark alleys, screaming at friends who were trying to help her, driving dangerously through the city streets. Each memory was a stab of shame and horror. "Stop it!" Maria cried out, her voice echoing in the emptiness. "That's not me." The creature moved closer, its fetid breath enveloping Maria like a toxic cloud. "Oh, but it is you. You fed me, you strengthened me. Every just one more made me more powerful." Maria watched, transfixed and horrified, as scenes from her life played out before her. She saw herself missing deadlines at work, showing up late and disheveled. She witnessed the hurt in her parents' eyes as she stumbled through family gatherings, reeking of alcohol. She relived the moment Tom walked out on her, unable to cope with her drinking anymore. "No, please," Maria begged, trying to look away, but the images followed her gaze. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." The creature's grin widened, revealing rows of broken, jagged teeth. "Intent means nothing, Maria. Actions are what count. And your actions have led you here, to me." Shadow tentacles emerged from the creature, wrapping around Maria. She felt the bitter taste of alcohol forcing its way down her throat, burning her from the inside. Memories of blackouts, destroyed relationships, and lost opportunities flooded her mind. "This is your legacy, Maria," the creature growled, its face now inches from hers. "A wasted life, drowned in bottles and regrets. And now, you're mine forever." Maria tried to fight, to deny, but every justification she tried to formulate dissolved in the face of the brutal reality staring her down. The weight of her choices, the impact of her addiction, it all fell upon her with crushing force. "No," Maria whispered, her voice breaking. "There has to be more than this. I can change. I can make things right." The creature's laughter boomed around her. "Change? Make things right? Look at yourself, Maria. Look at what you've become." As if on cue, a mirror materialized in front of her. But instead of her reflection, Maria saw a hollow-eyed woman, skin sallow and hair matted. The woman in the mirror raised a bottle to her lips with shaking hands, desperation etched into every line of her face. "That's not me," Maria insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. "It is you," the creature hissed. "It's who you are. It's who you'll always be." Maria felt herself sinking into an ocean of guilt and despair, feeling that there was no more hope, that this was her final destiny. The darkness seemed to press in on her from all sides, threatening to crush her. "Please," she whispered, not sure who or what she was pleading to. "I don't want this to be the end. I don't want this to be my story." But the creature only laughed, the sound reverberating through the void. "Your story? Your story is written in empty bottles and broken promises, Maria. This isn't the end. This is your eternity." The images around her began to swirl faster, a dizzying kaleidoscope of her worst moments. Maria saw herself pushing away everyone who ever cared about her, saw the disappointment and hurt in their eyes. She relived every morning spent hugging the toilet, every shameful walk of shame, every lie she told to cover up her addiction. "Stop it," she screamed, her voice raw with anguish. "I can't take any more." "But you must," the creature growled. "This is what you chose, Maria. With every drink, with every bad decision. You chose this." Maria felt herself drowning in regret and self-loathing. The weight of her actions, the consequences of her addiction, it was all too much to bear. She wanted to disappear, to cease existing rather than face this torment. But as she sank deeper into despair, a tiny spark flickered in the depths of her being. A memory, unbidden, rose to the surface. It was of her as a child, full of dreams and potential, looking at the world with wonder and hope. "No," Maria whispered, her voice gaining strength. "This can't be all there is. I refuse to believe it." The creature snarled, its grip on her tightening. "You have no choice. This is your reality now." But Maria clung to that spark of hope, that memory of who she once was and who she could be again. It was small, fragile, but it was there. And in this realm of darkness and despair, it was enough to keep her from completely surrendering. "I may have made mistakes," Maria said, her voice shaking but determined. "I may have hurt people, including myself. But that doesn't have to be the end of my story. I can write a new chapter." The creature roared in fury, the sound shaking the very fabric of this nightmarish realm. But Maria held on to her resolve, that tiny spark of hope growing brighter with each passing moment. As she clung to this newfound determination, the darkness around her seemed to shift. The oppressive weight lifted slightly, and in the distance, Maria thought she saw a pinprick of light. Was it real? Or just another cruel trick of this hellish place? Maria didn't know, but she knew she had to find out. With every ounce of strength she had left, she began to move toward that distant glimmer, leaving the howling creature behind. Her journey was far from over, the road ahead uncertain and fraught with challenges. But for the first time since she found herself in this nightmare, Maria felt something other than despair. She felt hope. And with that hope came the first step towards redemption. In the moment when Maria believed she was completely lost, a blinding light burst through the darkness. The demonic figure recoiled, hissing in pain. The oppressive weight that had been crushing Maria's spirit suddenly lifted, replaced by a warmth that seemed to emanate from within. "What's happening?" Maria gasped, shielding her eyes from the intense radiance. The light was so bright it seemed to penetrate her very being, chasing away the shadows that had taken root in her soul. The creature that had tormented her let out an agonized shriek, its form beginning to dissolve like mist under the sun. "No," it wailed, its voice fading. "You're mine. You can't escape." But even as it spoke, the creature's power over Maria was waning. The tentacles of shadow that had wrapped around her dissipated, and she felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years. A warm and comforting presence enveloped Maria, dispelling the terror and guilt that had consumed her. It was like being wrapped in a blanket of pure love and acceptance, a feeling so profound it brought tears to her eyes. Then a gentle yet powerful voice echoed through the space. "Maria, you have been loved even in your worst moments, and you can still find your way back. Alcohol is not your refuge, it's your prison. True freedom lies in facing life with courage and clarity." The words penetrated deeply into Maria's heart. She felt an inner shift, an understanding that transcended language. Each sip not only distanced her from her physical health but from her true self, from genuine connections, from a life full of meaning. But I've done so much wrong," Maria whispered, her voice trembling. "I've hurt so many people. How can I possibly make things right?" The voice responded, its tone filled with infinite compassion. "The path to redemption begins with a single step, Maria. Your past does not define your future. You have the power to change, to heal, to grow." As the voice spoke, images began to form around Maria. But unlike the nightmarish visions from before, these were filled with hope and possibility. She saw herself attending support group meetings, her eyes clear and determined. She witnessed reconciliations with friends and family, tears of forgiveness and joy being shed. Is this really possible?" Maria asked, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and disbelief. "It is more than possible, Maria. It is the future you can create for yourself, if you choose to embrace it." The light showed Maria glimpses of a different future, one where she faced her fears and insecurities without the crutch of alcohol, where her relationships were based on honesty and not on hazy moments of drunkenness. She saw herself excelling at work, earning the respect and admiration of her colleagues. She witnessed herself volunteering at a shelter, helping others who struggled with addiction. In each vision, Maria's eyes sparkled with a vitality and purpose she had long forgotten. But how? Maria asked, her voice gaining strength. How do I begin? The voice replied, by acknowledging the truth, Maria. By accepting that alcohol is not your friend, but your jailer. By recognizing that true strength comes not from numbing your pain, but from facing it head-on. As the voice spoke, Maria felt a profound shift within herself. It was as if scales were falling from her eyes, allowing her to see the world and herself with perfect clarity for the first time in years. I understand now, Maria said, her voice filled with a new determination. I've been running for so long, trying to escape my problems, my insecurities, my pain. But all I've done is create more suffering, for myself and for those who care about me. The light pulsed gently, as if in agreement. Yes, Maria. And now that you see this truth, what will you do? Maria took a deep breath, feeling a strength she hadn't known in years coursing through her. I'll change. I'll face my demons head-on. I'll make amends to those I've hurt. I'll build a life I can be proud of, a life free from the chains of addiction. As she spoke these words, Maria felt something shifting in the world around her. The formless void began to take shape, transforming into a familiar setting, the hospital room where her physical body lay. Remember, Maria, the voice said, its tone filled with encouragement, this journey will not be easy. There will be challenges, temptations, moments of doubt. But you are stronger than you know, and you are not alone. Maria nodded, tears streaming down her face, tears not of despair, but of hope and gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. I won't forget this. I won't waste this second chance. As the hospital room came into clearer focus, Maria heard the steady beep of heart monitors and the hushed voices of medical staff. She could feel the weight of her physical body, the aches and pains from the accident serving as a stark reminder of how close she had come to losing everything. But along with the pain came a renewed appreciation for life, a determination to make the most of this opportunity she had been given. The memory of her experience, the nightmarish encounter with her addiction personified, and the transformative revelation that followed, was etched indelibly in her mind. As consciousness began to return fully, Maria made a solemn vow to herself. She would not let this experience be in vain. She would face the long and challenging road to recovery with courage and determination. She would rebuild the relationship she had damaged, regain the trust she had lost, and create a life filled with purpose and genuine joy. The light that had guided her began to fade, but its warmth remained, a constant reminder of the truth she had discovered. As Maria opened her eyes to her new reality, she knew that her journey was just beginning. But for the first time in years, she felt ready to face it, not with a drink in her hand, but with hope in her heart and strength in her spirit. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with obstacles and temptations. But Maria was no longer the same person who had recklessly driven her car that fateful night. She was reborn, transformed by her brush with death and the profound revelations she had experienced. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the hospital room window, Maria smiled. It was a new day, the first day of her new life. And she was ready to embrace it, one sober step at a time. The rhythmic beeping of heart monitors pierced through the fog of unconsciousness, pulling Maria back from the abyss. Her eyelids fluttered open, struggling against the harsh fluorescent lights of the intensive care unit. The oppressive silence of the void she had experienced was replaced by the bustling sounds of a hospital in full swing, the whir of machines, the squeak of rubber soles on linoleum, the muffled voices of medical staff. As awareness slowly returned, so did the pain. It was a symphony of agony, broken bones screaming their protest, lacerations burning across her skin, and a throbbing headache that threatened to split her skull. Yet, even as Maria winced from the physical torment, she realized that this pain paled in comparison to the profound inner transformation she had undergone. "She's awake," a nurse called out, her voice a mixture of surprise and relief. "Doctor, come quickly." The room suddenly burst into activity. A doctor rushed to her bedside, shining a penlight into her eyes. "Maria? Can you hear me? Do you know where you are?" Maria tried to speak, but her throat was parched, her voice a raspy whisper. "Hospital, accident." "That's right," the doctor nodded, his tone gentle. "You've been in a coma for 3 days. You're very lucky to be alive." Lucky. The word echoed in Maria's mind. If only they knew how true that was, how close she had come to losing not just her life, but her very soul. As the medical team fussed over her, checking vitals and adjusting medications, Maria's thoughts drifted back to her experience. The terrifying encounter with the demon of her addiction, the transformative light, the profound revelations, it all felt so real, so visceral. She knew with a certainty that ran bone deep, that what she had experienced was more than just a dream or hallucination. In the days that followed, as Maria's physical condition stabilized, she found herself driven by an almost desperate need to share her experience. She spoke to anyone who would listen, doctors, nurses, her family members who came to visit. She told them about the grotesque creature that embodied her addiction, about the saving light that had shown her a path to redemption, about the life-altering revelations she had received. But her words were met with skeptical looks and dismissive comments. "It's the trauma talking," the doctors said, exchanging concerned glances. "Near-death experiences can cause vivid hallucinations. It's probably just the effect of the medications," a kind-faced nurse suggested, patting Maria's hand. "Don't worry too much about it, dear." Even her family, relieved as they were to see her recovering, listened to her story with poorly concealed disbelief. Her mother's brow furrowed with worry, her father shifted uncomfortably in his chair, and her sister Sarah, the same Sarah who had tried to stop her from driving that fateful night, attempted a sympathetic smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Maybe you should rest more, Maria," Sarah said gently. "You've been through a lot. Your mind is probably just trying to make sense of it all." Maria felt a surge of frustration. "You don't understand," she insisted, her voice gaining strength. "This wasn't just a dream or a hallucination. It was real. It changed me. I can't go back to the way I was before." Her father cleared his throat awkwardly. "Of course, sweetheart. We're just glad you're okay. And if this experience helps you, well, cut back on the drinking, then that's great." Maria could see it in their eyes. They didn't believe her, not really. They were humoring her, treating her words as the ramblings of a traumatized mind rather than the profound truth she knew them to be. As the days turned into weeks, Maria found herself increasingly isolated in her experience. The doctors continued to attribute her story to post-traumatic stress. The nurses smiled politely but changed the subject, and her family gently steered conversations away from any mention of demons or life-altering revelations. But for Maria, the memory of her near-death experience remained vivid and undeniable. The struggle now was internal and daily. The desire for alcohol still existed. She could feel it lurking in the corners of her mind, whispering promises of escape and relief. But each time the temptation arose, the vivid images of her experience resurfaced, reminding her of what was at stake. She would remember the grotesque creature, its skin blistered and burned, its eyes filled with liquid fire. She would recall the suffocating darkness, the weight of her regrets threatening to crush her. And then, just as despair began to set in, she would feel again the warmth of that saving light, hear the gentle yet powerful voice reminding her of her worth and potential. These memories acted as a powerful deterrent, stronger than any lecture or rehabilitation program could ever be. They were a constant reminder of the precipice she had stood upon, and the miraculous second chance she had been given. One evening, as Maria sat in her hospital bed, staring out the window at the setting sun, Sarah came to visit. For a while, they sat in comfortable silence, the unspoken weight of Maria's experience hanging between them. Finally, Sarah spoke. "You know, I've been thinking about what you told us. About your experience." Maria turned to her sister, hope flickering in her chest. "Yes." Sarah hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I can't say I understand it, or that I fully believe it happened the way you described. But I can see that something has changed in you. You're different, Maria. There's a light in your eyes that I haven't seen in years." Tears welled up in Maria's eyes. For the first time since she had awakened, she felt truly heard. "It was real, Sarah. I know it sounds crazy, but it was real. And it changed everything." Sarah reached out and took her sister's hand. "I believe that you believe it. And maybe that's what matters most. If this experience, whatever it was, helps you fight your addiction and reclaim your life, then I'm grateful for it." Maria squeezed her sister's hand, feeling a surge of determination. "I won't let you down, Sarah. Not this time. I've been given a second chance, and I intend to make the most of it." As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be challenging, she knew that. The skepticism of others, the daily battle against her addiction, the long process of rebuilding trust and repairing relationships, it would all require immense strength and perseverance. But Maria was no longer afraid. She had faced her demons, quite literally, and emerged stronger. She had glimpsed the person she could become, the life she could lead, and she was determined to make that vision a reality. As night fell and the hospital quieted, Maria closed her eyes, not to sleep, but to remember. To revisit the harrowing darkness and the saving light, to recommit herself to the journey of recovery and redemption. And as she did, a small smile played on her lips. For the first time in years, Maria felt truly alive, and she was ready to embrace every moment of this new life, one day at a time. 6 months after her near-death experience, Maria stood at the podium, her hands trembling slightly as she surveyed the room filled with expectant faces. This was the inaugural meeting of Second Chance, the support group for recovering alcoholics that she had founded. The irony wasn't lost on her. The very addiction that had nearly destroyed her life had now become the catalyst for her rebirth. "Welcome everyone," Maria began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "My name is Maria, and I'm an alcoholic." The familiar chorus of "Hi Maria" echoed through the room, and she felt a surge of connection with these strangers who shared her struggle. "6 months ago, I nearly died," she continued, her eyes scanning the room. "Not just physically, but spiritually. I had an experience that changed everything for me, and I'm here today to share that with you, in the hope that it might offer some light in your own darkness." As Maria recounted her near-death experience, the terrifying encounter with the demon of her addiction, the transformative light, and the profound revelation she had received, she could see a mixture of reactions in her audience. Some leaned forward, captivated by her tale. Others shifted uncomfortably, skepticism evident in their furrowed brows. "I know some of you might not believe me," Maria acknowledged, a small smile playing on her lips. "Honestly, there are days I can hardly believe it myself. But whether you see it as a literal experience or a powerful metaphor, the truth remains the same. We all have the power to choose light over darkness, life over self-destruction." As the meeting progressed and others began to share their stories, Maria felt a warmth spreading through her chest. This was why she had sold her car, the instrument of her near-destruction, and used the money to start this group. Every person in this room was seeking a second chance, just as she had been given one. After the meeting, a young woman approached Maria, her eyes brimming with tears. "I've never heard anyone describe addiction the way you did," she said softly. "That demon. I've felt its presence, even if I've never seen it. Thank you for making me feel less alone." Maria hugged the woman, feeling a connection that transcended words. This was what her near-death experience had truly been about, not just saving herself, but offering hope to others who were still trapped in the darkness she had escaped. As the months passed, Maria watched in awe as her life transformed. Relationships that had been strained to breaking point began to heal. Her parents, once constantly worried and disappointed, now looked at her with pride. Sarah, her sister, became not just family but a true friend and ally in her journey. Professionally, doors began to open as well. Maria's newfound clarity and purpose shone through in her work, earning her the respect and trust of colleagues who had once viewed her as unreliable. She even began giving talks at local schools and community centers, sharing her story and warning others about the dangers of alcohol abuse. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still days when the craving for a drink hit her like a tidal wave, days when the memory of her near-death experience felt distant and unreal. In those moments, Maria would close her eyes and transport herself back to that pivotal moment, the suffocating darkness, the blinding light, the choice she had made to embrace life in all its complexity. One evening, as Maria sat in her apartment, reflecting on the day's events, her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Just wanted to say I'm proud of you, sis. You're changing lives." Maria smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. She walked to the window, looking out at the city lights twinkling in the darkness. It struck her then, the parallel between this view and her experience, pinpricks of light pushing back the darkness, one small victory at a time. She thought about all the people she had met through her support group, all the stories she had heard. Each person was fighting their own battle against the shadows, seeking their own moment of transformation. And in helping them, Maria found that she was continually reaffirming her own choice to live in the light. As she prepared for bed that night, Maria caught her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her was a far cry from the broken, desperate person she had been 6 months ago. There was a clarity in her eyes, a purpose in her stance that spoke of the profound change she had undergone. "Never too late," she whispered to her reflection, echoing the message she shared with others. Never too late to change, to choose life, to embrace the light. And so what had begun as a tragedy had transformed into a beacon of hope, not just for Maria, but for all those whose lives she touched in her new mission. Her near-death experience had become a rebirth, a second chance not just to live, but to live with purpose and awareness. As she drifted off to sleep, Maria felt a deep sense of peace. The road ahead would still have its challenges, she knew. But she was no longer afraid of the journey. She had faced her demons, glimpsed the light beyond, and made her choice. And every day, with every person she helped, she reaffirmed that choice. In the quiet of the night, Maria made a silent vow to herself and to the universe that had given her this second chance. She would continue to share her story, to offer hope to those still trapped in the darkness of addiction. Because she knew now, more than ever, that every life touched, every soul pulled back from the brink, was a victory not just against alcohol, but against the very shadows she had faced in that surreal experience. And with that thought, Maria closed her eyes, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring, secure in the knowledge that she was exactly where she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. To all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of transformation and hope. If Maria's story has touched you or resonated with your own experiences, we'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories of near-death experiences and personal transformations. Remember, your engagement helps us reach more people who might benefit from these powerful narratives. So don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section below. What did you think of Maria's NDE? How has it impacted your own perspective on life and addiction? And if you know someone who might find hope or inspiration in Maria's story, please share this video with them. Together, we can spread a message of hope and the possibility of change, no matter how dark things might seem. Thank you for listening, and remember, it's never too late to choose light, to choose life, to choose a new beginning. Until next time, take care and stay inspired.